All right, great. So we got our glow script program, right? So eventually what we want to do is we want to build that thing, right? We want to actually build all three components. So we're going to be basically building vector 1 here, vector 2, and then vector 3, right? And we can call them by those names as well, right? So maybe we can just recap what we just did. How do we get vector 1? Brian. So what's the x, y, z coordinates, or the x, y, z components of our vector 1 here? So we got cosine 15 times 270. So we got 270 cosine 15. So that's our x. What about y? Just v1. So what would the y and z coordinates for v1 be? 0 and 0, right? Sweet. What about our v2? Rust. Oh, sorry, what? Wouldn't this be negative? Totally. Good catch. Thank you. V2.
270 sine 15.
270 sine 15. Is that x or y?
That's y.
Cool. What about x and z? Nice whispering, team. Cool. I heard a bunch of zeros. Absolutely. Great job, Rust. Love it. Cool. What about this one, our third one here? Right? What's the x component? Is this too easy or too hard? I'm getting no feedback. Too easy or too hard? Cool. Thank you, Annika. Still same question. Too easy or too hard? I'm just wondering why nobody's responding. What's that? Thinking about it. Cool. So you'll note that this vector is really, this right here is the x component. This right here is the y component, right? So that guy right there, there's our x component. That guy right there, there's our y component, right? We're really just adding two vectors together. So that's what we're going to be building, right? This is our naive approach here, right? So I'm going to be creating it using arrows, all right? Arrow, glow script, right? Literally, we Google that, right? The first thing that pops up is glow script. You'll note the second thing that pops up is VPython, right? This is what glow script is built on top of, so probably that will work, but definitely this is the one we're looking for, right? The glow script one. So you can see here's what it looks like. There's a whole bunch of different attributes in here, and this is also a nice little picture of what our guy looks like, right? So we have a position, right? This is where the tail of our vector is, right? We have an axis in length. We have a shaft width, so that's how wide is this shaft, right? We have a head width, how wide is our head, right? So I'm just going to be picking some arbitrary numbers for our width of our two things. So we need a position, right? So for this, and we need to actually do a little bit more calculations here. So for this first position here, right, for V1, right, our x component, what is this position? What is a reasonable thing we want to put there? Cool, a whole bunch of zeros. Right, there's our pause, right? You'll note that that is also the position for V3. What about V2? What is the position of that guy? Is it also 0, 0, 0? No. Totally, right? It is this thing here, right? So that's the, it's literally, we can actually just use this vector here, and we're going to be doing that exactly, right? So that's going to be the position for V2. So let's draw V1 first. So we'll have V1 is equal to arrow, right? And you can see our syntax is right here, right? So we need a pause. We potentially want a shaft width, right? We potentially want an axis, and we actually definitely want an axis in length, right? You'll note that they did not include a head width or a head length over here, and that's because they have some default values, right? And if you want to find out, someone want to scan over this page and tell me what those default values are? Someone want to find what that is? What's our default head length? I heard it's 3. Cool, right? You can see right here, head length. Oh, it's actually not 3.
It's 0.3.
It's 3 times our shaft width, I think. Right? Does everybody else see this? So you can see additional arrow attributes. So we have a shaft width, we have a head width, and we have a shaft length. So by default, they're all going to kind of look the same. Whatever our length of our arrow is, right? The shaft width is going to be 0.1 of that, right? So in this case, it's going to be what is 270 cosine 15? It's about, I don't know, 230 probably, right? So this would be 23 in that case, 10%, right? The head width is a bit larger, and the head length is a bit larger than that, right? So I will specify those. So we got pos equals vec. What's that?
You were too easy.
Oh, I did. I fixed it though, but thank you. Right, so we got negative 270 cos 15, and I realize this is a syntax error. If you already know what it is, congratulations. Don't spoil it for everybody else. Right? Cool. So when we hit run here, you'll note that this thing crashed, right? We have invalid syntax, 270 cos 15, right? That is an incorrect way to phrase that. Right, so there's actually two errors there. Maybe experienced programmers, can somebody with a hand give me one suggestion as to one thing that's wrong? We need a little multiplication sign. That is one error. Right, there is also a second error here. Maybe let's run this and see what happens. So we can see cos 15 not defined. Cool. It's trying to say that cos 15 is a variable. Right, does anyone know how to fix that one? Parentheses, right? Cos is a method or a function, right? So we are going to be calling that function. David, what are we doing over there? Working hard? Cool. Right? And now when we run this guy, you can see we have our nice, beautiful, whoops, hold on, let me zoom out. Shoot, hold on, let me run this again.
Doesn't the position vector be 0, 0, 0?
Oh, right, totally. Why is nothing showing up? This is correctly what I have coded. Why is nothing showing up? Is that new? Are other people getting stuff to show up? Because the arrow has no length, right? We need to actually stick that in there, right? So that is this axis and length, right? So we'll do axis and, actually I don't think we need that. I think we can just do axis. And so axis equals, it's another vector. Oh, I'm sorry, I actually screwed up. The pos is 0, 0, 0. I'm just going to cut this and stick it at the end. So pos is vec 0, 0, 0. Axis is this guy right here. Cool. Now when we run this, we have our nice, beautiful arrow. And what's wrong about that?
That would be bigger.
There's an actual error here based on my picture that I drew. Does anyone know what I forgot? Is this, again, too easy or too hard? Don't know. Cool, too hard. Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Cool, what's wrong with this based on my picture over here? Sorry? Facing the wrong way. How do I fix that? It actually should be right. Axis.
Can you make it bigger than 5?
Oh, totally. Is that better? Axis equals vec. Are other people getting their arrow going to the right as well?
Yeah, you got a 10 in there? What's the 10 for?
That's a typo.
And then,
That might fix it.
Yeah, just get rid of the negative.
oh,
Get rid of the negative,
Yeah.
and it goes to the left.
but is it the right length?
Uh,
Like if you print that vector,
Cosine. Oh, I actually know what's wrong. I do know what's wrong.
this is calculating degree and radians.
Yes.
So you need to change
This
your
is
number.
calculating in radians, right? So we need to take our 15 and turn it into a degree thing, right? So let's just make another variable for this. Angle in rads is equal to 15 times 2 times pi divided by 360. And then we can plug that guy in there.
Can you do
Angle
that expression
in
right in there?
rads. You could do it right in there, right? Anyone want to give me any hints as to why I created a variable for it?
so you can change it easily.
So you can change it easily, and we're using it twice, right? We're using it once here, and we're using it again over here for the vertical component. Totally. Right, cool. So there's our V1. That should now work. And it's going to the left. It's wonderful. It's so good. I love it. Right, questions on the first one? Cool. Take about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. See if you can get our other two vectors to show up. We'll check back in 2 minutes. You could do it all. That will work. Sure. So V2 is equal to 0. Does this work? Oh. So you have multiple arrows. You have one arrow here that's at this position, right? How big is this? Is this vector? Well, you know how we have a position in a direction, right? So you have. So you're. Oh, I see. You've done this at 2. So you have 2 arrows though. You have this first arrow which you're not actually using, right? This shows you that V1 equals this. You can get rid of this guy because right now this is nothing. Its axis is by default 0, 0, 0. Does that make sense? And then additionally, you're asking about the 2 lines. You can leave it on 2 lines or 1 line. That works. Okay, either way. And then this would just be. So this I should put. Well, you can leave the second one. Doesn't matter. You had 2 on there. They were just on top of each other. So yeah, you just need to add a second one. Thanks. Yep. Yeah, I'll be done by then. So what's up? You guys can read. Sure. Right, we're just gonna have an arrow connecting the 2 arrows. You don't want to change the Z. The Z is into the board or into the screen. So
How would you get it
so it has an X and a Y component. So you see the other ones have 0 for the X or 0 for the Y, right? This
Yeah.
so money.
Let's do it. I think it's good. So it's the same thing as this. You did it. Okay, so it's gonna have locals.
Cool. Many people or a few people have finished it, and some of your arrows are gigantic, and some are tiny. Right? If you are in that boat, figure out how to make it prettier. AKA normal looking.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, what happened there? Cool. So what is the axis? So we only have 2 attributes that we're messing around with right now, right? One is pause and one is axis. So what does that mean?
Right.
So what's coming up?
Okay. Okay, go back.
4v1. What is its pause?
So 0. Oh, okay. So you just have to put that guy in.
Okay. What about v3? What is its pause?
-270, 0.
Good start here.
And then here's what I
Okay,
would
so where
do.
does it start?
Change that to 0.
Pause. 0, 0, 0. What about v2? Where's its pause?
It's like, yeah. Start him at.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You decided.
Alright,
Okay, you
hold on.
decided.
Alright, what about
Here's the
the
way.
axes? What's the axes for v1?
So then this one should start at 0, 0.
I don't have mine slanted.
Yeah, I
What you're
understand.
trying to do is
So what's the axis
all
for
you're
v1?
doing. Like why did you have it like that? So I. So
Why?
what I did is I put that that result in like
It's the
shaft width is just the size of the angle.
So what angle is V1?
Shaft width you don't have to worry about. You can just use
Straight.
I call it shaft
Straight
width.
line, right? So 0 in the y component,
But-
right? 0 in
but
z,
I think your
all
problem
in
is
the negative
this
x.
guy actually.
Right? What about this guy? What's his? Axis.
Straight up, so it'll be 0 x the y.
That thing. Right? Means 0 for that. What about this guy? What's his axis?
Now
How far
your
is it
shaft
going?
width is already big. So if you put in shaft width, one shaft width, one, then maybe that's There we go.
Yes.
You know what I did to
You're
make
good.
it
You're good.
like mine? Yeah, you guys may want to put shaft width 1 for each of those vectors.
Yeah.
And they make them a lot nicer instead of being these fat, ugly vectors. How you guys doing here? Okay. Did you want any help at all? No.
Cool. I'm gonna crank mine out real quick. You can compare yours with mine.
How you guys doing? Did you guys see that? See? That's good. Perfect. How'd you guys do? You guys good? Cool.
You should have been but then when where do I go
Yep. Anyway, I put it right after. I put it right after the thoughts.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Cool. Did this work? Yeah? Yeah. Just a quick point, by the way. Vectors are written this way as well. At this point, I've just been writing vectors as like, you know, R is 200, and then I'll write in brackets, you know, 20 degrees north of east, right? That's one way you could write a vector, which has a magnitude and a direction.
Right.
Another, like, so in this case, it would be 270 and 15 degrees, and then north of west, right? North of west. Now you're learning another way of writing it. This is how I learned it in university. We would write it like this with brackets like that,
Mm-hmm.
and we write comma, comma, and then we would write negative 270 cosine 15, right? Then positive 270 sine 15, right? And then 0, right? And so what you're reporting is the x component, the y component, and the z component. In math, we actually have a name for them. They're called, there's a little I with a symbol on it, and then a little J with a symbol like that, and then a K like that. That's actually how they do it in the Physics C course. They actually use something called unit vectors. And it really makes sense, actually, to teach it that way.
Totally.
When
Right.
you add and subtract vectors, it's a lot easier to add in this way.
Right. And you'll note that these two are exactly the same thing, right? They're two different ways of expressing it, right? This is almost like polar coordinates, and this is
Exactly. Yeah.
regular-
They're-
regular
called
coordinates.
rectangular components.
totally.
That's what these are, rectangular components. And I think the angle with the number is polar coordinates. You guys learned that a little bit in that math class, is that? And you could do all sorts of really hard calculations, like multiplying vectors, and you can do it beautifully on Python.
Cool. So many of you, when you ran, oh shoot, what did I do wrong? Line 5. Oh, eros. Arrow. Cool. So many people, when you, oh man, what the heck? Object.x is not supported. Oh, v1.pos.x.
So you changed it to that.
Oh, that should have worked. That's interesting. v1.pos.x, v2.axis. This is axis. All right, sweet. So this is one way of doing this. This looks wrong, right? Did I miscalculate my angles? 15 times 2 times pi over 360? Oh, this is sine. All right, so many of you had something look like this, right? And you'll note that if you change the shaft width of all of these to be 1 or some hard-coded number, then it'll be nice and pretty looking. Whoa. Right? Many of you probably did not do this the way I did. Up. Where's the remote?
It's around here somewhere. This way.
Is this a standard thing that happens?
No, I just haven't updated.
I see. Uh oh.